Tanse, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Thank you for joining us. The Opipinapoan Cree Nation in northern Manitoba declared a state of emergency following a series of stabbings over the weekend. Now, northern leaders are calling on the federal and provincial governments to help with the violence before it gets worse. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
We demand more than immediate responses.
Unemotional Chief Ducharme speaks outside a meeting about child welfare in downtown Winnipeg with other female chiefs offering her a hand in support. Her community, Opipinapoan Cree Nation, is under a state of emergency after two separate stabbings early Saturday morning.
Immediate thinking was, we have to protect our people, our children, and immediate lockdown was in place.
It lasted 36 hours and has since been lifted. Now a curfew remains in effect from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. until after September long weekend.
These bandit solutions, they're not long-term.
Ducharme and other chiefs here can't help but to think about the tragic stabbings in James Smith Cree Nation back in 2022. The mass deaths in that community resulted in financial support for mental health services and a healing center, something Ducharme wants in her First Nation.
Our members are ready, to go to treatment and so on, but we don't have the resources right on our lands. It's way in Winnipeg or Thompson, and they have a long waiting list.
Hilda Anderson Perez is a band member who echoes that a healing lodge is essential to healing entire families.
Because if you're continuously taking people out of the community, treatment supports that are not effective and they're coming back to the same environment with no supports or resources. Like, governments have to really take a community-based approach if they truly want to address, the violence in the community.
Chief Angela Levasseur of the neighboring Nisitjuweyasik Cree Nation agrees, but says there are other problems in the north that need to be addressed immediately.
Since 2021, we have seen a 40% increase in violence in MKO nations.
Levasseur says more than half of the 26 First Nations in northern Manitoba only have RCMP presence for a week at a time.
How would people in Winnipeg and Manitoba feel if they did not have police presence for 3 weeks out of the month? There would be anarchy, there would be chaos, and that is what you see in our First Nations communities.
She's also calling on the provincial government to help curb the flow of the illegal sales of alcohol in First Nations.
They purchased a case of what they call Mickeys. They're obviously bootlegging. Where is the regulation?
Regulation, she says, will make a dent in helping curb the violence in the north. As of airtime, there has been no response from the federal or provincial government. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
From July to September, the Assembly of First Nations is traveling across the country to meet with regional chiefs to discuss the $47.8 billion settlement agreement on the long-term reform of First Nations child and family services. All of this happening before the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly in mid-September here in Winnipeg. This week, AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak met with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Woodhouse-Nepenak says she has had tough but constructive discussions with the chiefs on what to do with the multi-billion-dollar settlement money, including using the money to create or improve First Nations' own child welfare systems that focus on prevention, not apprehension. She says the chiefs from across the country will have final say and a final vote, but admits that although the agreement is not perfect, it is the largest settlement in Canadian history, and she believes it's a fair chance for Indigenous children. Chiefs can put forward potential amendments before the Special Chiefs Assembly in Winnipeg in September from 17th to the 19th. Here's what Chief Woodhouse-Nepenak had to say about the meetings.
We're finally having a real talk, a real discussion about what we need to do to change the outcomes. Because many of those people out there that are on the street, they come from this system. We're breaking people down, and we need to start lifting people up, building families, pulling them back together once again. And we need to support families. We also need to support our grandparents. There's too many grandparents in First Nations communities across this country that have been assuming that role, rightfully so. That's how traditionally it was done in our communities, but we're not even giving them support.
This is very important that Manitoba Chiefs' voices are heard because, unfortunately, Manitoba has the highest representation of First Nations children in care. So we need to make sure that we are looking at the agreement through a Manitoba-specific lens.
Woodhouse Nepenak will be in Saskatchewan and Alberta later this week. The Assembly of Manitoba chiefs say they are offended and disappointed after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau appointed former Winnipeg broadcaster Charles Adler to the Senate. They're now calling on Governor General Mary Simon and the Prime Minister to rescind Adler's appointment over comments he made on air in 1999. At the time, Adler called Indigenous leaders uncivilized boneheads and intellectually moribund during a protest by Indigenous people at the Manitoba legislature. Adler also criticized Indigenous leaders' decision to live on a reserve because it lacks free enterprise and responsible government. The AMC calls Adler's comments vulgar and racist and wants a senator who values inclusion, respect, and reconciliation. Adler spent decades working in broadcast journalism and for 20 years hosted a conservative radio talk show on Winnipeg's CJOB. He is now an incoming independent senator for Manitoba. Here's what some Manitoba chiefs had to say about his appointment.
In my view, when you give such a prestigious and honorable appointment to a man who is well known for making derogatory and offensive comments towards Indigenous people, that speaks volumes. And I ask, how do you go from appointing a First Nations hero and role model like Judge Marie Sinclair to the complete antithesis of such an individual? You are rewarding discrimination. You are rewarding racism. You are rewarding stereotyping of First Nations and Indigenous people. And it's very shameful, and it's a dark day.
They're pretty derogatory comments when it comes to our people. And people forget that we are the first people of this country. And for comments like that to be made from someone that is going to be appointed into the Senate is not acceptable.
In a statement to APTN News, Charles Adler said, "I am accountable for what I say and do. I've reached out to the Grand Chief and the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs to request a face-to-face meeting. I am still waiting to hear back from them." A new addictions treatment center has recently opened in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. The center will be operated by Poundmakers Lodge Treatment Centers, and it will provide 14 withdrawal management and inpatient addictions treatment spaces to Saskatchewan residents. The Saskatchewan government says the 14 treatment spaces is part of its commitment to add 500 treatment spaces across the province to double its capacity. For 5 decades, Poundmakers Lodge has been providing addictions treatment that includes Indigenous culture and spirituality. The grand opening ceremony was held last Friday. The Ontario government has announced new restrictions on supervised drug consumption sites, including a ban on 10 of them that are near schools and childcare centers.
We need to do more to support a journey into treatment and recovery, to keep communities safe, and to address the tragic impact of substance abuse, drug overdoses, and opioid-related deaths have in our communities.
The province says new centers will be built with a focus on support and treatment for those who use drugs. Survivors of what is known as Canada's Indian Boarding Home Program can begin applying for compensation today. Under the program, students were often sent hundreds of kilometers away from their home communities to live with mainly non-Indigenous families to attend public schools. It ran from 1951 to 1992 and affected about 33,000 Indigenous kids. As part of a $2 billion settlement, claimants are eligible for $10,000 to $200,000, depending on the level of abuse they suffered. They have until February 22nd, 2027 to apply. For more information, you can go to boardinghomesclassaction.com. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The Muscopheating First Nation in Saskatchewan is looking to make a big business venture if the city of Regina is up for it. We'll tell you more when we come back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. For more than a decade, the rail yard just north of downtown Regina has remained vacant, leaving many residents wondering what would become of the area. The Muscopheating First Nation is hopeful they will someday have a business hub on a nearly 18-acre land. But as CTV's Mick Favel tells us, lack of communication is leaving them frustrated.
After 2 years, Muscopheating First Nation is still waiting for a response from the City of Regina regarding a significant business proposal. In 2022, the nation presented building a business hub at the yard site just north of downtown. Since then, there have been talks, but nothing since July, when the city brought forth the idea of a baseball stadium at the site, catching the nation by surprise.
They were very receptive to our project, and they were pleased that a First Nation was coming to the table with an idea. We hope a city administration would take our ideas serious, and we've spent a significant amount of time on this project. We've invested money, we've invested consultants, and we're still hoping for a positive outcome here.
Dewdney Avenue, which is connected to the proposed site, is currently under major renovations, leaving a big question mark how the area will look in the future. In July, City Council brought forth a motion to explore the idea of a baseball stadium in the yards. Earlier this week, Regina Mayor Sandra Masters said the revitalization project is the first piece.
Dewdney Avenue services going in the ground right now are the only way the yards can be developed at all. It's a beautiful rendering, it's a great idea, but at the end of the day there will be fairness around this process, which will include a request for proposals, and we will look at any and all that come in.
Over the past 2 years, Muscopheating says they have missed other opportunities on other properties due to the wait. They remain hopeful something can still be worked out.
Muscopheating still remains optimistic on the project. We realize that anything that's going to be developed here is still years out. And we've signaled that to the city. We've signaled that in our other press releases. Nobody's reached out to us, so we still have to move forward as if it's day two.
Mick Favel, CTV News, Regina.
Over to the Down Under now. This year marks the 24th year of Garma in Australia. The very first festival was held just before the turn of the millennium in 1999. Back then it was a small-scale event, little more than a backyard barbecue. But the mission of its founders remains, to be a cross-cultural meeting of leaders to discuss important issues impacting First Nations people across the country. With more on that, here are our friends from NITV in Australia.
On the remote red dirt of northeast Arnhem Land, each year thousands descend for the largest First Nations gathering in the country. A 4-day celebration of Yolngu life and culture.
Really, Garma is a gathering place. It has always been, some 60,000 years before Garma even existed. So very traditionally significant ceremonial ground. And obviously the Gumatj people are the traditional owners who share this very generously with the nation.
Now in its 24th year, the festival has become a pivotal platform for politics.
We can bring our country together, we can bring our two worlds together.
The Garchambull Auditorium is a key location at Garma, a space where those leading discussions on Indigenous affairs field forums.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to see truth through a Western lens anymore.
Topics range from land rights, health, education and economic development. As the sun sets each night, the rhythm of clapsticks and the voices of Yolngu songmen ring out across the site, summoning all to the sacred Bungu grounds. Here, the different clan groups take turns performing traditional dance, sharing stories and songlines that stretch back millennia. The annual event was conceived by the Yothu Yindi Foundation, led by the late Yunupingu, with the aim of improving standards of living for all First Nations people. The word Gama means two-way learning process in Yolngu Matha. It's an invitation for Ballanda or non-Indigenous people to listen and learn.
Take back what you can from us and learn from us and come back again next year.
From weaving to spear making, cultural activities scatter the campsite as traditional practices are put on full display. A cultural immersion unlike any other, making the magic of Gama an unforgettable experience.
From that last story, you got to understand what Garma is, and now this next story will tell you where Garma is. It's held in Gulkula, an important ceremonial site in northeast Arnhem Land, around 650 kilometers from Australia's northern capital city of Darwin. Here's a quick look at the significance and history of the area.
Garma takes place at Gulkula on the Gove Peninsula, situated on the far northeastern coast of the Northern Territory. It's Gumach country, bordered by beautiful white sand beaches and tropical savanna forest. It's about half an hour's drive on unsealed roads from the town of Nhulunbuy. The town sprang up in the mid-1960s when the federal government excised the land so that the multinational company Nabalco could mine bauxite and process it into aluminium. It was vehemently opposed by the Yolngu people, the traditional custodians of the land, who sent a bark petition to the government. That petition now hangs in Parliament House in Canberra. These days, Nhulunbuy has a population just shy of 3,500. Gulkula was chosen as the festival site as it's a significant ceremonial place for the Gumach and linked to ancestral stories. The site sits on an escarpment surrounded by a forest of grey stringy bark trees, which also feature in the songs and dances of the local people. All of East Arnhem Land is Aboriginal land, and a permit is required to enter by road. But it has a deep water harbour and an airport, with most of the expected 2,500 Gama attendees flying in.
The people of Caldwell First Nation in Ontario are finally able to go home after they were pushed off their land for more than 2 centuries. We'll tell you about that story when we come back in less than 3 minutes. Stick around. Over on the East Coast, St. John 17, Charlottetown 24. Cartwright 20, Nujiwak 17. Saguenay 17, Val-d'Or is 24. Toronto 25, Sault Ste. Marie 25 there. 26 in Timmins, Sioux Lookout 24. God's Lake 28, Thompson 23. Winnipeg it's 28, Barons River 26. Regina 29 in Rain, North Battleford 25. Orange 28, Uranium City 17. Fort Chipewyan 20, Peace River Sunny and 25. Calgary 23, Red Deer 23 as well. Tofino 19, Kamloops 25. Prince Rupert 18, Sandspit 18 as well. Whitehorse 20, Watson Lake 19. Yellowknife 15, Trout Lake 18. Inuvik 15, Sachs Harbor 2. Chesterfield 17, Well Cove 16. And Clyde River 12 and Arctic Bay 8. 230 years ago, the Chippewas of Caldwell were pushed off their land. In 2011, Caldwell settled a long-standing claim with the federal government and gained status 4 years ago. In the fall of 2020, a 200-acre plot was purchased to build new homes. And earlier this week, people moved back to their ancestral lands in Leamington, Ontario. Caldwell Chief Mary Duckworth recently spoke with our Dennis Ward. Here's that interview.
Chief Duckworth, thanks so much for being with us, and congratulations on the new homes for the community.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
What does this mean for Caldwell First Nation?
For Caldwell First Nation, it I feel it's emotional for me to talk about, but what it means for Caldwell First Nation is for our citizens to move on to our First Nation, our territory, and reside as a community, Dennis, which we haven't been able to do in a really long time. As you know, we were forcibly removed from our homelands and scattered, and now this is a chance for us to reclaim our land back and come together as a community and celebrate.
Yeah, for those who are unaware, can you tell us a bit about why Caldwell First Nation didn't have homes or land to even build them on until relatively recently?
Yeah, Caldwell First Nation has a long history with the Crown, and what happened was there was a obligation from the Crown to allow us to reside on our homelands after the War of 1812, and this didn't happen. So prior chiefs and councils took action and started to write the letters to, to the King, to the Queen, and try to come to an understanding of why this didn't happen, and eventually had to engage Canada to hold them to the treaty promise.
Where was everyone living?
I can tell you, Dennis, we're all over Turtle Island, but I'll tell you that the majority of people live within southwestern Ontario. We had many family members that remained in the Leamington area, and then many surrounding this area. So we are, it's a fair distance when we come to get together for meetings and, have activities. But for a small First Nation, we've been together over the years and kept our family ties and kept in contact with each other.
How many units, I guess, are available, and when can some members begin moving in?
Thanks. There's 28 units available, and 28 members will be moving in. We did a call out to the community. We only had 28, and thankfully, Dennis, 28 applied. And so we had members move in 3 weeks ago, 4 families, and this week we have 4 more families moving in, and it'll be an eventual move-in until all the units are occupied.
So full up already. Any plans for or hopes for future developments?
Yes, we are. We have serviceable lots right now, and we're engaging our community to see what they would like us as leadership to continue on with, and in the way of housing. Our housing right now is net zero, and so it's important that we leave not a big footprint, as you know, Dennis, but take care of Mother Nature and everything that it does for us. So we're really careful on our decisions as a community.
Well, Chief Duckworth, we'll leave it there, but again, congrats to you and your members, and appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis, and we wish you all the best, First Nation. And that's your midday newscast for this Wednesday, August 21st. We'll have more stories for you for this evening newscast at 5 p.m. Winnipeg. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. We'll see you again.